Hello, everyone, and welcome to What the Heel. My name is Maria Sellars, and I will be your guide along this journey. And today I have the incredible pleasure of being joined by Tamar Hill of Pacific Roots CBD. So I'm very excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It's really, Tamar has an incredible product. A friend of mine actually connected us and was like, you need to interview her on your podcast. And immediately once I saw your topic, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to interview her for the podcast.
Yes. We have a unique product.
Yes, and it's one that's very needed. So I'm so glad to hear that you're sharing on this.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I'll be referring to my sister a lot, who's a physiatrist who worked with pelvic pain. So I'll refer to her stories a lot. So
awesome.
the tangential stories. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm excited to dive in. For those of you who don't know, Tamar is a California native and is a graduate of Palo Alto High School and Occidental College. After earning her master's degree at Occidental College, she was hired by La Canada High School in Southern California, where she taught biology for 16 years. In addition to teaching, she coached the Girls Varsity Basketball team for 14 seasons, spent 2 years as the ASB advisors, and 3 years as the athletic director. Tamar founded her summer camp, Spartan All-Stars, in 2001 as a girls basketball camp, and in 2012 transitioned it to an all-day co-ed sports camp. The camp was a hit and quickly grew in the most popular sports camp in Southern California. In 2014, while she was teaching and coaching, she bought a Kona Ice franchise and built up the Pasadena, California area to 3 territories consisting of 5 mobile units before selling it in 2019 to pursue her other business ventures here in the state of Florida, Pacific Roots and real estate. Oh my goodness, we've got a lot to go here.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yes,
in that,
a lot to go through. Wow, I'm so excited. So thank you again for being here, and tell us what the heel is going on in your world.
You know what? I think it's so funny you said what the heel, because when I coached, there was a parent that made a big sign and posted it on the wall in the gym that said, give him Hill. So, I was like, oh, dude, that's hilarious.
I love that.
So I've always been in biology and sciences, and I taught, and I always had the entrepreneurial spirit, which teaching and entrepreneurship doesn't always go in hand, but when it does, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. So how I got to this point with Pacific Roots, because I do not do CBD with my sports camp. We don't do that with the kids.
Yeah.
We give them the Kona Ice, but not.
They get the Kona Ice.
No CBD.
No CBD for you. Yeah.
Got to be legal, and we don't want the kids falling asleep. So, so my sister is a physiatrist. She's a pelvic pain specialist, and she was very into alternative concepts. So a lot of her, and she herself was later diagnosed with endometriosis later in life, and always just suffered from horrendous periods and cramps. And she was a Division I college volleyball player, so everything was really hard on her body. And when she was going through med school, a lot of people told her, like, hey, the pain, pelvic pain patients, this is all in your head. It's just, there's nothing real here. And so she just kind of suppressed it and realized, well, I'm in medicine and I don't believe in this. So what's the conflict here? And so as she became a specialist, she looked at other things. Like where I was injured, she was like, well, have you tried acupuncture yet? And I'm like, oh, no, I haven't. And that actually really helped my hip pain.
And she probably had never had acupuncture before herself.
No. Or have you tried going to a chiropractor? So it wasn't like, go get this prescription. And so when a lot of the patients she was seeing were on some pretty heavy duty narcotics, Valium, suppositories, some people get Botox for pelvic pain and certain conditions. And she'd gone to a conference and somebody had presented on CBD and relieving pelvic pain. And so she found a pharmacy that was willing to compound it, because back then it was a little bit more, the Farm Bill had barely come out.
That's what I was going to say. When did she start within all of this?
I would say it was like 2018 or 19. She had heard it. And then so she got them to compound, and she was getting great results from her patients. And for a lot of people who cannot take narcotics, I took Valium after a shoulder surgery, and how do people function on this? This is insane. So I stopped taking it after 2 pills.
Yeah.
Because it would put me to sleep immediately, and I didn't feel great at ever.
Right. You get into a slump with that kind of that zombie. You feel like,
yeah.
Like, wait, I am not myself right now.
No. And so it was really as that Valium alternative, and it's all natural. It's non-addictive. And the CBD she was using initially was isolate, which is kind of, I don't want to say it's the worst form of CBD, but it's not the most medicinal.
And what are the different forms? Because there's...
Great question.
I'm like, I know there's many, but...
I just had somebody who knows that I work in CBD send me a label, and they said, hey, is this good for my grandma? And I'm looking at this label, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how come people don't label their things properly?
Yeah.
So there are, when you're looking at a CBD product, you're going to see 3 main things written on the label. You're going to see something that says CBD only. You're going to see something that says broad spectrum, and then you're going to see something that says full spectrum. And then you're going to get people that get really creative and say things like full hemp extract, which is very deceptive. And that was this particular label, but I'll go through them. So you have the hemp plant. When you see a hemp plant, it looks exactly like marijuana. It smells exactly like marijuana. If I had a bundle of CBD flower on this table, you would think that, I was bringing drugs into your office. The only way you can tell the difference between legal hemp and marijuana is by testing it chemically. And the definition of marijuana in the United States is something that has 0.3% THC or greater. That's it. So the difference between the two is really a legal difference, and it really doesn't make you high or not. And that 0.3% THC is a combination of delta-9 THC and something called THCA, which when it burns into delta-9, and that's what gives people the high. If you have what most purists believe is that there's something called an entourage effect, that you have that cannabis plant that has the interaction of all those cannabinoids, CBD, CBG, THC, and there's a lot of different THCs, like I mentioned, A and delta-9, but there's also delta-8, which you'll see a lot in the market, which is...
Yeah, I've seen like delta-8 chocolate bars being sold. And
you know what? That is not a naturally occurring THC.
Oh, okay.
Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
So I don't want to call them potheads, but people that deal with marijuana are the best chemists in the world. Like, if there's a rule, they're going to get around it. So what they figured out is that if you take CBD isolate, you can take it and put it through a series of chemical pathways and switch it into delta-8, which gets you high. But it comes from a hemp plant.
That's been chemically altered, so it's like synthetic almost?
Yes. yes. It's a synthetic chemical, but it's still real. It's still a real compound.
Right.
But it wasn't naturally occurring. It's been massaged. So
okay.
And so the feds, they don't know what to do with it because it's legal under the Farm Bill, because the Farm Bill only accounts for delta-9 and THCA. They didn't account for this delta-8.
Yeah.
So they have no idea what to do with it. They can't legally do anything with it. So there's a lot of states that are putting restrictions on it, as they should, because, kids shouldn't be using it.
Yeah.
Because it does give you a high.
Right. They're within those chemical constituents. So.
Yeah, but they can't really do anything, and they don't know what to do about it. So
wow.
Yeah, it didn't expect that to turn that. But we don't put that in our suppositories either. Much to the chagrin of many.
Yeah.
But so when you get a true full spectrum CBD product, it will have a little bit of delta-9 in it or THCA.
Okay.
And it will also have CBG and those other cannabinoids. CBN is another cannabinoid which they believe helps with sleep. But interestingly enough, CBN by itself doesn't work. It actually needs CBD to activate it. So they have a synergistic effect. So when they first discovered this about CBN, people were selling CBN and it wasn't working. But if you sold them together in like a 1-to-1 ratio, it worked.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Okay. I know
right?
I've seen like CBN and CBG before.
Exactly.
So I used to use CBD quite a bit. And I remember all of a sudden then the company started having Delta 8 and CBD and CBG and there was all these things. And I'm like,
and it gets overwhelming.
Yeah, it was overwhelming.
Yeah. And a lot of companies are now like, okay, let's just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Let's just keep it simple. And so the full spectrum, from my opinion, is the most medicinal.
Okay.
However, if you take full spectrum products enough, you could build up enough THC where if you do have a job, like you're a first responder or you're in the military and you get drug tested, you could test positive for THC. Even though you've never gotten high in your life, you could test positive.
Just those trace amounts built up over time.
Exactly. Okay. So in that case, you're going to want to find a broad spectrum product, which has the range of cannabinoids like the CBG and the CBN that you mentioned, but it has had the Delta 9 and the THC removed from it.
Okay.
So that's also a great product. And then there's the CBD isolate, which is literally like powdered CBD. There will be no traces of any other compounds with it. So it's not my favorite product, but it can still be very effective for people. So people that are Delta or THC sensitive, we always recommend them going with isolate. But the product I saw yesterday with my friend's tincture, she goes, "What is this?" And so I'm like, "You need to send me the back of it. I can't tell." And so what had happened on it is they made it with hemp seed oil. So they called it they called it a full spectrum hemp extract, even though, and then on the back it said there's no THC in this product. And I'm like, you guys are liars. You are totally trying to deceive people because hemp seed oil is CBD free. You can go buy that anywhere.
Yeah, I was like, that's
on
just,
any shelf.
Yeah, like jojoba oil or something.
Yeah.
Like it's available.
Exactly. So I was like, wow, this is really deceptive. So you have to know how to read the labels to make sure you're not paying $60 for a hemp oil tincture with some CBD isolate in it.
Yeah. And when looking at that too, because I know I've seen some that have like grapeseed oil and things like that. Those are probably not ones that you want either.
You'd be okay with grapeseed oil as long as you check to see what type of CBD they include.
That's in it. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Because a lot of it is a taste preference. Because if you have a hemp seed oil tincture, they're disgusting. They are foul. It's like I just ate bugs mixed with like grass clippings. It's horrible. Some people love it. I'm like, well, okay, all right, you do you. But most tinctures that you find on the market will be made with MCT oil, which is coconut oil, fractionated coconut oil. Okay. But you can see a grapeseed oil one here and there if people are trying to get bougie with their formulas. But ultimately, it's what's the CBD inside of it. It's
the CBD that's inside of it, not the other pieces of it. Okay, that makes so much sense.
So I hope I didn't tangentialize too much, but full spectrum, if you're okay with THC, find a true full spectrum, which means there will be THC in it. If you cannot have THC, find a broad or an isolate. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Whew. I know that's a lot. That's a lot to take in. Like listeners, you might want to take a drink of water. We just had a lot thrown at us with that, but such great information. So thank you.
Yeah.
So tell us more how your sister, as she started to go through this journey, she was having incredible results with her patients.
Yeah, so she had this pharmacy compound. Initially, again, it was CBD isolate suppositories, and they were used from anything, and I won't use the technical names, but anyone experiencing pelvic pain or pelvic floor spasms or dysfunction, she would use it for anyone who was having painful sex or, oh my gosh, I just blanked on it. I said it earlier. It's the endometriosis. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It happens. It's like, it's right here on the tip of my tongue.
or even just excruciating menstrual cramps.
Yeah.
So what our suppositories have, and there are other CBD suppositories on the market, what makes ours a little bit unique is that we combine it with magnesium. And so
magnesium has its own host of benefits as well, too.
And so with those two, and that's kind of like our silver bullet, that really helps our, in my opinion, our suppositories work better and just maybe a step above what else is out there. And so that helps with muscle relaxation. And that's part of, if you're having a spasm or contractions or the muscle floor is just not relaxing, that's going to help that and help the CBD get absorbed more effectively in either the uterine tissue or rectally. So what's interesting is our suppositories can also be used vaginally or rectally. And if you use them rectally, you're going to get a more systemic effect, which means it's going to go full body. So the one way to get CBD into the system is through smoking. Smoking is not good for your lungs. There's the other side effects with that. So the next best way to get a systemic effect is rectally. And then after that, it's a tincture under your tongue, sublingual, or the gummies.
Even if like the rectally, would that work? Does that impact that just physical level? I know you're saying systemically, but people who take CBD for anxiety and things like that,
it would help for that as well.
Okay, gotcha. So that's really big, and that's why I'm like, let me make sure I trace back to that. So it's not just the physical symptoms that it would have an effect on.
It should help. I sent a sample to a physical therapist friend of mine. She does pelvic floor work, and she calls me. She goes, "I'm addicted to your suppositories." And I'm like, "Well, they're not addictive, right?" And she's like, she goes, "I have been sleeping every night," and she was using them rectally.
Yeah.
And that also, she also found that my sister, when she was giving them to patients with IBS, it helped relax the smooth muscle in the digestive tract and the colon, which would also help with just more regular bowel movements. And even with the magnesium, a lot of people were like, well, did that cause diarrhea? No, it didn't. For some reason, it just kind of helped reset those muscles and give them a little bit more strength and less spasming. So it helped with that as well. And interestingly enough, about half of our patients are I shouldn't call them patients, half of our clients are men. So it's very effective for both men and women.
Wow, that is so great to know, especially IBS. That's another thing people struggle with and don't get a lot of answers for. Those internal things, right? It's like we wind up struggling so much. We look fine on the outside, but internally within that digestive tract, a lot of people, whether it's their reproductive organs or their digestive organs, people struggle so much into that area. And most of them are struggling in silence because it's not something that you can see. I can't look at somebody and go, wow, your endometriosis must really be flaring today. So to have solutions like this.
And a lot of people just silently suffer.
Yeah.
And they don't talk about it. They don't reach out. They're embarrassed. But it's, we had a client, we just changed our formula from a certain kind of base to a cocoa butter base, just to try to keep the ingredients simple. And this particular client happened to be allergic to cocoa butter. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who's allergic to cocoa butter?
Right.
But she was. And so her husband had reached out to us and said, hey, can you please manufacture us some with the old base?
Yeah.
And because you've changed her life. You've given her life back. Can you please help us out? And so we did a year supply for her because you put them in the fridge or the freezer and they're fine.
Yeah.
And so it's for those that this helps, it can be a game changer for them.
I've got tears right now. I mean, what an incredible thing for the company to do and say, oh yeah, here, of course we're going to formulate you some of these. So that speaks volumes. The husband calling in and asking of that for the wife speaks volumes, but that, for the product itself, but then the company itself, them making her own batch within that is really incredible too.
And we'll do what we can to help people, to help their meat. I mean, obviously it's going to be tough to create, 50 custom formulas, but it was within our scope. It was something we could help her do. And so we were happy to do it for them. And they were great clients and they continue to be. So,
I love to hear that they would do that, because that is when you can make a difference in that way in somebody's life. And then they are like, this is what works for me.
I mean, imagine like finally having that. So I taught biology for years, and I taught all of the body systems. And I remember, we'd have like a whole chapter on the nervous system. We'd have a whole chapter on the digestive system. In the endocannabinoid system, there was a paragraph.
Yes. And tell people more about the endocannabinoid system, because people don't realize what that really is within the body.
Well, and I think we don't even know the full scope of it.
Yeah, right. Because it was in the 90s that it was discovered.
Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, hey, there's this thing that might be helpful in controlling our moods and emotions and stress and this. And so it kind of got lumped in with like hormones as like, oh, this might be important. But there's literally endocannabinoid receptors throughout the vagina and the uterus and all over our body that help regulate those pain signals, even though in marketing CBD, we're not allowed to say the word pain ever. So if you look at our website, we cannot use the word pain. We can use discomfort and relief because legally, if we do that, we'll get our banking shut down and everything. So I'm not making these claims. Total disclaimer.
But no claims being made.
None whatsoever. And so there's really just not a whole lot of research done. I think most of the research that we're going to see done with either pelvic pain or pain in general and CBD is going to be done internationally, or it's going to be done anecdotally. So another interesting story, sorry, kind of sidetracking. There was a doctor that I met at a pelvic pain conference, and he came up to me and he's like, well, I wanted to do a study in CBD and suppositories. So I had my grad student write up a proposal and submit it to the FDA. And he was like, and I was going to self-fund it, like $20,000, $30,000. We'll figure out if this is BS or if there's something to it. So he submitted the study, and then a couple weeks later, a month later, the grad student said, hey, we have a meeting with the FDA. And he's like, okay, great. So he gets on this call, and he quickly realized this was not just a rubber stamp call. He goes, it would have normally taken an act of God to get all of these heads of departments on the FDA on any one call. Yeah. And they were all there. And they're like, we really want you to do this study, but we want you to do animal trial this, and we need you to do this and this. And they kept lumping on all these things to do. And he's like, at the end of the day, it would cost $7 million to run this study.
Oh my God.
With what the FDA wanted them to do. And he's like, so sorry to waste your time. We'll make sure we're going to withdraw our thing. And they couldn't do the study because the kind of the roadblocks or the FDA says they want it, but when you do that kind of, do you really want it?
Exactly. We need to have all of these things in place. Or if they did, hey, here's the $7 million to fund that.
Well, and what CBD company is going to fund that?
Yeah.
Because you can't patent CBD unless you have the synthetic form of CBD, which somebody does have a patent on that. And I guarantee you that drug company is going to try to push that only that CBD can be used in anything. Because at the end of the day, it's all about money.
Exactly. Unfortunately, that's what it all boils down to, right? It's not our health. It's our dollars.
Yes. If somebody can put a patent on it and sell it for a lot more money, then it can pass through the drug trials.
Yes. I mean, that's with essential oils. That's why, we don't use those as medications because nobody can fully patent it and own all the rights. So it's like, we're like, no, those don't do anything, much like CBD, which essentially CBD is an essential oil, right?
Yeah,
it's the
it's an
essential
oil.
oil of the hemp plant.
Exactly.
That's really what it is. So, it's crazy. The different benefits that these things can have on us, and then how they're withheld from us, the hoops that people who are trying to help them get to, the people who they can really make a difference for, like they're shut down before they can get in front of those people in so many ways. So,
and because of that, it's very difficult to educate people on it.
Yes. Yeah.
So a lot of the, because we go to a lot of pelvic pain conferences with physicians and physical therapists and chiropractors and nurses and midwives, just to try to educate them as, look, we don't claim this as a cure. I'm not going to tell you that CBD is going to react with everyone like it did with the one client that changed her life. It's not going to work for everyone, but if it does work for you, it's like, oh my gosh, where's this been my whole life?
Yeah, the it kind of.
And even so, for other people, sometimes it might take a while to break down that inflammation cycle and the pain cycle that they're in. But, with proper physical therapy, doing your exercises, working, with the CBD on top of it, all seems to really, really help people.
Yeah. And I know, like when I used CBD in the past, they mentioned there was a saturation period that, when you were taking the drops under the tongue, that you needed to go through. Is it the same with the suppositories? Is there like this saturation period?
Saturation period? I don't think I've ever heard of that.
So how it was described to me is like you start out by taking it, 4 times or so throughout the day. And you start by taking it that because it would encourage your body to like use and produce more of its own. And that's when you then could taper off and be at like the once or twice a day. So I wondered if it was the same with the suppositories.
I'm thinking about just our basic homeostasis system.
Yeah.
Right. Our body wants to maintain balance. And part of the endocannabinoid system is it also is going to have a homeostatic effect where it finds that balance. And so to some extent, yes, I believe so. Because a lot of people think, oh, well, more CBD is going to be better. I'm just going to hit it hard all the time.
I'm just going to take 5 droppers every morning and that's it. Instead of like, let me take 1 dropper 5 times throughout the day.
Yeah. So I think with ours, because we sell our most popular suppository is our 100 milligrams full spectrum. And that we sell them in a 10 and a 30 pack. So for people that order the 30 pack, they're probably taking it daily or twice daily.
Okay.
Usually in the morning so they don't have to take narcotics, or at night to help them sleep so they're not in agony. Some people take them 3 times a day, but for the most part, most people only need it once a day.
Okay.
But the effects will taper off.
Yeah.
Especially if they're not in balance or their body can't maintain that.
Yeah. And I imagine too where the absorption being different in the different parts of the body too.
And everybody is so different. Like I've met people who are like, CBD does nothing for me. And then I've met people who are like, I'm addicted to it.
Yeah.
So, and then I met this one doctor who she had a fascinating story, but I literally think she had no THC receptors because she was like, I tried to get high one time. And people tell me stuff all the time.
Oh, I'm sure.
I get crazy stories. She's like, my husband and I, we decided, I wanted to get high because I'd never been high. So we were at my friend's cabin and she told me what she took. She should have been in outer space, like dancing with cheese and aliens. Like the things she was like, how many edibles did you take? And then you hit what? And then you did, oh my gosh. But she's like, no, I didn't, nothing. Everyone else was incapacitated. So sometimes people just aren't responsive to things. Just like doctors, when they're psychiatrists, they have a whole list of drugs they've got to go through because everybody's individual biochemistry is different. So what works for some people might not work for another.
Right. There's never an end all be all, one size fits all, solve everything.
Yeah. Even, Tylenol. My sister's allergic to Tylenol. I'm like, I love that stuff.
Exactly.
It's great.
Yes. I mean, it just, every body is so different. So we can't put that blanket on and say, well, this works for everybody with X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
Because it's everybody with X, Y, and Z if they don't have A, B, and C. Or,
And so that's why I tell the doctors, I'm like, look, I don't claim it's a cure. It's just another tool in your toolbox to help patients that have probably been kicked around to 15 different doctors and are in pain, and it's real. And for whatever reason, because people feel pain for different reasons. Like because I was a former athlete, I like to say I like to think I still am, but definitely a former athlete. But when I watch like a live soccer game or a sporting event and I see somebody get hurt, like instantly I feel every injury that I've ever experienced. It's like, oh, that ankle. Oh my gosh. Like, oh, like I can't look.
Yeah.
Because I re-feel every sprained ankle, which was a lot growing up. And so all pain is processing in the brain. Mm-hmm. It's just, and sometimes the memories can it can trigger that. And so I'm sure you've seen that in your practice where
yes.
trauma and pain are very linked together.
Very, the trauma is stored in the body, right? The Body Keeps Score. That's a book to add to your reading, listener. The Body Keeps Score. It's a book on how trauma does. It lives in the body and can cause pain that we're experiencing today. So very familiar with that.
Yeah. So whatever the reason we're experiencing pain, it is, if we're feeling it, it's real because our brain is processing it. So, if there's no, we can't find the source of pain, there's no skeletal reason, there's no muscular reason for it. To say it's all in your head, it's rude, because nobody likes to say that they're making something up. But
right.
Sometimes it literally is our brain generating those pain pathways.
Yeah, and especially even if you had an injury that was chronic and, for weeks, those pain signals were firing off. Well, even after the swelling and everything has gone down, those pain signals can keep firing off and impacting the brain in that way.
Exactly.
So,
every time I sit down, I'm experiencing this pain. So I don't want to sit down because I don't want. So pain is very complicated. It's not easy. So my sister was a pain specialist. So she found this was an effective tool to help break that cycle, break the inflammation. What she liked to call it was resetting nerves so that maybe that fire isn't there.
Yes, and so that it doesn't keep alerting.
Yeah.
Sending that signal. Oh, I think that's such important work. And I'm really grateful that she started that and got you into that, because, oh my goodness, you've got a ton of great information to share.
It's been a fascinating thing going from teaching to selling, CBD and drugs.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I'm the real life Breaking Bad with my CBD products in the suppository box.
Yeah.
Back in the garage, we're making CBD. No, we do not make any of our products in the back garage, but you know what I'm saying? It's just.
But you are changing people's lives with them, and that is pretty awesome. So.
Thank you. I mean, I encourage anyone to just try it. So we have actually 4 different suppositories for pelvic pain. The first one is vaginal dryness. And this is more for people with menopause and people experiencing, or if they're had chemotherapy, they're just dry downstairs. Yeah. It's worth a shot.
Yeah.
And it also has hyaluronic acid, aloe, vitamins A and E. So it's really...
Yeah, I got some nourishing things in
it's
there.
A nice drink of water.
Yes, exactly.
Like, hello. And then...
WAP.
And our other THC-free one is just our wellness, which has 50 milligrams of THC. Or CBD, no THC. But we also have our Wellness Plus, our bestseller, hands down. It outsells everything 2-to-1, which is our 100 milligram. But we also have a great product called our Pleasure Suppository, which is really no different than our Wellness Plus, except it has 25 milligrams less CBD, but you only buy it in a 5-pack. So if you're not sure and you're like, maybe I'll try it, it's just a marketing thing. Because pleasure means like, woohoo.
Yeah.
And it is CBD. There has been some studies out there which says CBD actually helps enhance sex. But for a lot of people who are in pain, the last thing they think about, especially if they have dyspareunia, which they have pain during sex, they're not thinking about pleasure. They just want the pain to go away.
Right.
But the pleasure pack can serve the same function as the Wellness Plus, but you only have to try it in a 5-pack.
Okay.
Which is nice. Hey.
Yeah. And hey, if you are getting rid of pelvic floor pain, I mean, that is very pleasurable on its own.
Yes.
So that is, that's so great. And listeners out here, if pelvic floor pain or IBS, if these are things that you have been struggling with, endometriosis, I really hope that you will reach out and connect with Tamar and learn more about these products that she has, because they can make a really big difference in your life.
And actually, I don't know, I just remember it. We actually have a special right now, free plus shipping. If they, it's a free 2-pack of the Wellness Plus, and they just pay for shipping.
Oh, well, great.
It was like $7.
Awesome. I'll make sure that we've got that information listed. And for our listeners who would like to find you, where can they connect with you at?
PacificRoots.com.
Okay.
Pacific like the ocean, roots like tree roots, put them together, PacificRoots.com.
I love it. Awesome. Well, listeners, please make sure you connect with her. This is a really incredible product, and I'm so happy that you took your time out today to educate us all on it.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
it's been so fun talking with you.
Oh, it really has. I appreciate you being on, and thank you, listeners, so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, you can follow or share this episode with whoever you know whose life that this could touch, because the impact that this could have in their world is huge. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to talk to you all next week.